Hello, I'm Eric Sartorius, Executive Director of the League of Kansas Municipalities. I'm grateful that technology is allowing us to bring you this video on orientation and ideas for successful public service. I tell people all the time that I think serving your community as a local government official is an honor. Local office is the government closest to the residents. You are the person that is sought out in the grocery store or the coffee shop when your residents have questions in both good times and in challenging times. The past year and a half has been hard on all of us, but we've made it through and hopefully the hardest part, and we're heading into a new year with hope and optimism. I want you to know that the League of Kansas Municipalities is here for you. We're your advocates and your support system for all things local government. This video is a great introduction for new officials, but the League welcomes everybody serving in local government, no matter their years of service, to join in. I hope you'll get involved with the League and participate in our advocacy efforts, our trainings, and our events. We are proud to serve you and look forward to meeting you in person soon as well.
Hey, good morning and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. First of all, I want to say congratulations to everybody who recently won their election. Hate to say this, but the easy part is over. Really, the next part is all about governing. I am super excited to have our recently past president with us, Sarah Kaler, who is the mayor of the city of Ottawa. She has been mayor multiple times. But Sarah, I'm going to let you introduce yourself real quick.
Yeah, hi. Greetings, and I'm only going to take a second of your time because really this is about learning for you to learn. I've been the mayor of Ottawa for 4 different terms. This is my 4th term, and I'm really happy to be there. But know that the learning curve can be steep.
It can.
And you've got a lot to learn. And I know that when you were out talking to citizens that you definitely had conversations about concerns and things that they like about the community, but obviously concerns too. And we want to make sure that you can be the most effective elected official in your community that you want to be and that your citizens need.
As somebody starts this endeavor, Sarah, what are some of the first steps you think they should take?
You know, I can only go on the history that I have and what when I came to the city of Ottawa, but I know that really one of the most important things I think that I did from the very beginning was get to know the staff. Absolutely. You need to know your staff and know that your staff is there supporting the mission of the city with you. It is a collaboration. It is not us against them. You should be working together. So please get to know your staff.
And I would definitely recommend getting a hold of the city manager, city administrator, city clerk, and setting up times to go tour as many city facilities as you can. Make sure you see the fire station, the police station, and really get to see what assets your city has. And definitely a big part of that is staff.
Absolutely. I think that just goes hand in hand with what you need to do. You really need to take just a little bit of time to understand their point of view and what every department does. You're not going to know the ins and outs of everything, but knowing just a little bit will really help you when you start in January as your new commissioner or your city elected official.
Probably the other big step I would encourage new council members, commissioners, mayors to take is start having conversations with your staff. Occasionally we will see governing body members who are elected to engage staff in conversations and they want everything to come from the bench. That is not an effective style. That doesn't get things done. Engage staff, have those conversations. And I guess this goes back to don't surprise staff, don't surprise other colleagues, engage in conversations.
Yeah, that is not a recipe for success, just trying to surprise staff. And certainly know that your staff cares about the community and cares about the department that they are heading up, and wherever department they are working on, whatever department they are working on, know that they probably have way more knowledge than they have ever led on before. So please lean on them. Ask them questions. Ask them a really simple question I always ask is, what don't I know? What don't I know that you think I should know? I think it's a really great way to start a conversation with any of your department heads or really anybody who works within the city structure.
Awesome. Now, those other things you should probably be looking at, city structure, understanding what staff the city has, understanding ordinances, meeting agendas. If you have not been going to meetings, great time to start going to meetings during this transition period. Staff should start sending packets, agendas to you right now, just so you're aware of, even if that transition's not till January, it is great to get that information as soon as possible so you can really understand what's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of like learning to ride a bike. It's like you don't just get on your bike and just ride it. You start with training wheels, you start with the small stuff. And so it's a really great way for you to kind of get to know what's going on with your city. And I would also encourage you to, if your city televises their meetings or makes their meetings available in some kind of digital format, to maybe go back and look and see how your cities have been acting or how your cities have been utilizing their meeting format. It really gives you an idea about where your city is going and how you can come and be a part of moving your city forward.
Also take time to look at the budget document. You're coming in on a brand new fiscal year. Kansas City's run fiscal year is the same as the calendar year. So January 1, that new calendar year starts. So a lot of that budget work's already been done for this year. Still great to ask good questions, but really important to understand the budget. How do you start to frame the budget as you start to work through it?
I think the most important thing you need to know is that budget time for next year will be here before you know it. And you will probably feel like you have just blinked and gotten and sat down in your seat as a city council person or a city commissioner, and it'll be budget time. So knowing what is in your budget is critical now. Your city may be doing budget amendments right now, and it's a great time for you to kind of review what did last year's budget look like, the budget that we're actually on, and how did it work and how did it not, and then know what moved forward. Again, if your city does offer any kind of electronic watch back for meetings, it's a great time to kind of look back at budget hearings too, to see how the budget was formed for this year, so you just have some kind of perspective.
Know when your swearing in date is, because that varies. It can be anywhere between December 1st and that second week in January, so make sure you know when swearing in date is. Also, I would say a good conversation to have right now is go meet the other commissioners, mayor, if you're not mayor. If you don't know them very well, this is your time to take them out to coffee, really understand what drives them.
Yes, I can't agree more. Actually, in the city of Ottawa, we have 5 commissioners that sit on our city commission, and it is critical to know that I am only one vote of 5. And you really want to work together. It's a spirit of working together. It's not you needing to be out there all by yourself. Everyone is trying to work together to move the city forward. So get to know your city manager. Get to know your other commissioners that you're going to sit with. It doesn't mean that you have to be best friends. You most certainly probably won't be, but you will be spending a tremendous amount of time with them. And it is important that you start a relationship with them, whatever that relationship is going to look like.
And I would say almost everybody coming into these new roles, everybody's on the same wavelength as overall goals. They want to see their city prosper. They want to see their city grow. Probably they think taxes are too high, but the staff should be paid more. So, all those things exist, and they're very similar across the entire state. But I would use this time to find out what drives your fellow commission members and council members.
Very true, Trey. Actually, I was thinking that when we had our conference just a few months ago, I was talking to some individuals from across the state, and I did make the joke, is your city the highest tax city in the whole state? And generally everybody always hears that. Yep, my city is the highest tax city, et cetera, et cetera. Know that I have yet to meet one elected official, at least on a local level, that maliciously goes into running for city commission or city council. There is generally always a thread of goodness in every single person that runs for a city commission, and they want their best for the city.
Yeah.
Now, how you get there may be a little bit different, but you can get there, and it's the spirit of cooperation that will really get you there.
And I would say as you get into the time of change, as you get into debates, the best governing bodies I've ever seen will disagree. They will have those items that they're not all 3, 5, 7, 9 on the same page on, but when that conversation's over, it's done.
Right.
And they are the most successful. Where we see problems is where we have a governing body, and when they don't agree on something, it's the same 3-2 on every vote, and they can't agree what color the sky is. And I would challenge those folks to find agreement where you can. I've had commission meetings where I've had 3-2 votes, but part of me, like, it was a different 3-2 every time. And that always gave me solace. Okay, at least it's people looking at it differently, and it's not we're not just voting against each other to be mad at each other. Any other tips along those lines?
I think just remember that if you do find yourself in which that you are not all in agreement, and it will happen, know that it is not about the person. It is about the topic that you're talking about. Don't take it out on your fellow commissioner. It's about the topic, and you disagree about the topic. Just respect that everyone can have a different opinion. Not everybody likes the same things for dinner, and it's okay, but it doesn't make it all bad. It's all good, or it all has some goodness in it.
Absolutely.
So wanted to circle back around with you really quick about getting to know and kind of orientating yourself as a new elected official. I do think it is really critical, Trey, that you not only just read from wherever, your office or your home or wherever. I think it's important to go out to those facilities.
Absolutely.
And I know that you had alluded to just a few minutes ago about, go to the firehouse, go to the police station. Absolutely, you need to go to those places. You need to go to Public Works. You need to go to your Parks Department. You need to go see those places, and you need to know what it is that runs your city. So, absolutely.
And I would say during the course of your term, you're going to be asked to authorize a lot of money at some point to upgrade some city facility, whether it's water, sewer, electricity, gas, public safety, something. And I found for the most part that it's really helpful when folks go and lay their eyes on the problem, especially if they, why. I buy pumps all the time for my business. Why does the city need a $25,000 pump? Mm-hmm. Well, when you see the scale and how much larger it is, then you understand what we're dealing with, and it's not something you can go buy at the farm and tractor store to pump water or sewer.
It's all perspective. Absolutely. It does change your perspective. So please do that. Do your due diligence and get out there and see those city facilities, and do it ahead of time if you can. If you've got some time, and when my kids were younger, I took my kids with me to the places that I could go, because it's good to let them know too. They're citizens, and let them know, hey, this is what runs our city, and it's important that we be a part of that.
Yeah, I don't know. One of my places I geek out the most is probably water plants. They smell much better than sewer plants. But just seeing how, I was in Atchison, and we had that muddy Missouri River water come in. And how within a very short time, you couldn't even see through it, and it goes through those stages and becomes incredible drinking water. And I think it's just amazing to understand those processes. And the miracle, I call it the miracle of the tap, because so many of us, we turn it on and we take it for absolute granted till something happens and there's a disruption. But there's a lot that goes in to turning on that faucet and something happening. And same with electricity and gas. So just encourage folks to go out and have those tours and understand the processes.
Well, and I think that we could piggyback on that a little bit. Your city may not own their own utility, but that doesn't mean that you can't make a request to see that facility, because that facility, wherever the water is coming from, the electricity is coming from, wherever those utilities are coming from, still impact your city. So I would encourage you, even if you don't own your own facility, your own utilities, still ask questions and make sure that you know, because when the lights go out, you will get calls.
You're the first when they fall.
Absolutely, absolutely.
One of the places that I would definitely encourage folks to go is, this is our 2020 Governing Body Handbook. We will have a new version out in April. But grab one of these at City Hall. Copies should be floating around City Hall. Look through this. This answers so many questions about what's going on, other than the budgeting section, which changed with the implementation of Senate Bill 13 this year. The rest of it is really good information, so I would encourage you to take a look at it and get to know what's going on there.
It's like the encyclopedia for local elected officials, and certainly something I go to often. And I've actually loaned it out to several people who aren't local elected officials who want to know more about governing bodies, and they find it really helpful too. So please grab yourself a copy. If you don't, ask your city to get a copy. The league always has them. So the league has copies, and we would encourage you to have several copies floating within your city.
Yes, grab a copy of it, look at it. And I think the most effective governing body members really understand what they can do as governing body members and what they can't do as governing body members. And I think it frames it really well for folks to know how they can be impactful in the right ways.
Well, and I think too, the key, what you were just saying, one of the keys too that we need to remember is you're not going to know everything. You're just not. There's no way by the time you're sworn in that you are going to know everything you need to know. Over a decade later on City Commission, still don't know everything. But the key part about that is making those relationships within your city so that you know who to go to and to ask those questions. When you've had those relationships, it's easier just to go back and just say, I'm not really sure I understand this, but can you explain this part to me? Those relationships are key. But I want to tell you one other really key part about it is really having a relationship with the league. The league, not only the governing body handbook, but there's an amazing staff here, and they're here to help serve really every single city across the entire state of Kansas, and truly almost every single city belongs to the league. I think one of the best resources is the magazine that comes out, and if you don't have this, your city does, and please go get some. You can actually read, I believe, back copies on the league's website, but just the league's website, the governing body handbook, call the league, ask questions. If you don't know, ask. I can tell you, I would much rather you ask a question than make the answer up and then get caught.
Absolutely. We do 10 Kansas government journals a year. You should get a copy, but if you're not getting a copy, check with city staff. Make sure you get a copy. I read it front to back every month. There's just great information in there. And you really see what other cities are doing across the state of Kansas and spurs those interests and see what you can do. And we try to target cities of every size in the state of Kansas as we put this together. Real quick, I want to hit on statement of substantial interest. You should have filled this out when you filed for office, but if you're going, what is a statement of substantial interest? It is an ethics filing that everybody's required to do. It helps us comply with Kansas law. So if you've not filled that out yet, please go ahead and fill that out. It gets filed with the county clerk. In addition, that has to be updated every year in April. So make sure you do that on an annual basis to keep yourself out of trouble. And that's by filing a statement of substantial interest. Some other things that I think it's important for you to look at. See if your city has a strategic plan. If they do have a strategic plan, look at it, take a careful look at that. Have you guys implemented a strategic plan in Ottawa?
We actually do. We have several different, several different parts of our plans. So yeah, today we're looking at our park plans. So yeah, we have all kinds of plans, but yes, we have a strategic plan.
Typically a lot of work goes into those plans. Multi-year planning, community stakeholder engagement. So if you have one of those documents, a lot of work has gone into it. And I guess my tidbit here would be respect the plan. Mm-hmm. Yes, ask questions about it, but there's been so much work that's gone into those. So I would encourage everybody else
and just a tremendous amount of knowledge, really, too, Trey, that's within there. If you read that strategic plan, you're really going to be up to date on what's going on in your community. So it's a really source of knowledge. Not only gives you a visioning of what the city may look like in the future, but what historically it does look like.
And it really gives you that why. Mm-hmm. I think as a city manager, that was always one of my goals. I wanted folks to understand the why. Right? It's really easy to say, I don't like that decision. But when we sit down and let's walk through the decision, let's walk through what the other options were, really helps you understand why we got there and how you work going forward. Next thing I want to encourage you to do is learn your organization's code of procedure, whether it's Robert's Rules of Order, whether it's our code of procedure that we have. But how do your governing bodies operate? Who sets the agenda? Is it the city manager? Is it the city clerk? How do you get something on the agenda? How does a member of the public get something on the agenda? These all vary by different cities. But what are your agenda orders? And make sure you have your agenda in the right. Make sure you understand it. Make sure you understand what a consent agenda is. Do you guys use a consent agenda?
We absolutely do use a consent agenda. And honestly, I would encourage you, not that this is, if you have extra time, the City of Ottawa, you can always look at our agendas and see kind of how our agenda is put together. But yes, we absolutely use a consent agenda.
So a lot of cities use a consent agenda, and this is for routine items that are non-controversial. maybe parade permits, minutes,
Appointment to the tree board.
appointment to the tree board, you know.
I mean, things.
So standard things that you can do kind of as one motion.
Yes. And it quickens the meeting, really. You don't want to be there all day.
And I'm always a fan of putting the consent agenda at the end of the agenda instead of the front of the agenda.
At the beginning.
So many people do it at the front,
Yeah.
but I'm a fan of putting it at the end of the agenda. And then if there's a question on one, I'm just talking about it real quick instead of making that. I think sometimes I think meetings should be formal, but I think some of the best cities are formal, but there's room for a little bit of you know, discussion back and forth to move the meeting along. Because sometimes you can have, you can sit around and you can discuss the rules for 10 minutes, where if you just had given somebody 30 seconds to talk about something, it would have moved along. That's just
fair.
Your
thoughts?
My thoughts.
So, hey, let's talk about media relations really
Absolutely.
quick. I think the really important thing is to know that more than likely your community and your city is probably engaged in some kind of social media, probably has relationships with, if you have a local radio station, if you have a local newspaper, if they still exist. But certainly need to know how your city approaches media relations, and who, at least for like the city of Ottawa, who's responsible for posting, who's responsible for sending out press releases, who's responsible for those things, how do those kind of things come about? Those are all really good questions to know that you want to know before you move forward on engaging with the media at all.
Absolutely. Know how it works. Know who your point of contact is. If you do have an event, whether it's a flood, some sort of accident, something that happens, this is the one time that there needs to be one city point of contact. And I will, having been there a couple of times, if something bad does happen in your city, the media is going to call every phone number they can call. And the absolute best thing to say when somebody calls is to say, hey, John is our point of contact for this situation. Here's his number, one point of contact. Now, conversely, when you have your meeting, say you guys do have a 3-2 vote or a 4-1 vote, and a member of the media walks up to commissioner afterwards and wants a little more explanation. I think that's absolutely fair to explain why you took that position in the meeting. That's when it's great to have multiple voices on something like that. But when it's a big event, that's when you need one voice. And the other place I would caution on, because we've seen this recently, is Facebook posting. Everybody has a Facebook account, but where you have to be careful is definitely want to encourage you to come to our governing body institute, but know the open meetings law. And all of a sudden, if you have 3 commissioners posting on the same thread on Facebook, we could have an open meeting.
Right.
Inadvertently. So Facebook is something to watch, and really, I don't know. I found at times it's better just to have that one voice for those Facebook comments instead of every commissioner trying to get their own view. And I don't know if you want to.
Well, I can only explain to you how the City of Ottawa does it. And we actually have a City of Ottawa Facebook page. We do have social media, other platforms, but we have one collective voice that responds to those. And so we respect that collective voice is the voice of the city. And I think you're absolutely right, Trey. If the vote is not completely 5-1 or 7, 5-0 or 7-0. But if there is a dissent vote, certainly, I think you have the right to explain your personal point of view.
Absolutely.
And I want to be careful about how I say it, but what you don't have the right to do is to explain the city's point of view.
Correct.
It's collectively everyone. So just respect that it's the collective voice of the city.
Yes.
But you have the right to your voice, absolutely.
And just remember, you're talking for yourself. You're not talking for the city in those situations. So, Sarah, you've been mayor several times. What are some of your tips for once you're in that meeting of how to be successful in the meeting and how to have the best meeting possible?
I think one of the very first things, and it's not even when you're in the meeting, it's what you do ahead of time. Read your meeting packet. Read all the information that you need. I recognize, I mean, there are times that we receive our study session packet and it's a couple hundred pages long. And yeah, that's a lot. But if I don't do my due diligence when I come to a meeting, then I can't ask informed questions. So I would encourage you to make sure that you know what is on that agenda and you've read what is on the agenda. And respect the process. The process goes as it's supposed to go. We do run by Robert's Rule of Order, and so we do have a presentation by our, when we have a particular item, we have a presentation by that staff member that is presenting it. Then we ask questions, and then I will ask if there is a motion. And there isn't always a motion, but I lay it out there. I say, I'll entertain a motion if there is one. And if there is one, there's a motion. Generally, there's a second. And then that's where you have a discussion about your vote, how you're going to vote on that particular topic. And then once that vote is over, you move on. You're not going back. There's no backwards. You move forward on your agenda. And that really keeps your agenda moving. Because meetings can be extremely long. I know I've spoken with some of my fellow commissioners and councilmen that it's hours long. And while that could happen, it shouldn't be the norm.
Absolutely.
So.
And, I will tell you, for me as a staff member who's put together countless packets, countless agendas, one of the most disappointing moments I've ever had is where I've had a council member walk into a meeting and say, hey, what's on the agenda tonight? I haven't had time to read it. Staff spends a good portion of their week putting together these documents, making sure you have information, trying to distill it down, but still giving you all the documents if you want to go through it. So it is so critical that you find time to read and ask those questions ahead of time, especially if they are, deal breaker questions. Definitely get those questions out there so staff can respond. So other, maybe it's calling one other governing body member. Obviously, we have open meetings, things that we have to watch, but making sure that you have a chance to have those items kind of vetted, and so more information can be prepared if you need more information.
So my responsibility, I feel like my responsibility is that when I read the packet, I generally highlight it. My packets are all just, and this is the devil's in the details, but this is how I do it. All my packets are on my iPad. I've literally have every packet since the very beginning of when I was a city commissioner, and I write on every single one of them right on my screen on the packet. And then I take those questions and I put them in an email form and I send them to my city manager, and he then disseminates them out so that those department heads will have those questions ahead of time. When we talked about at the beginning, it's not a gotcha moment. Your responsibility, I feel like my responsibility is not to catch my department heads off guard. My responsibility is to help them bring the best information that they can forward so that citizens understand what we're talking about and the process and the topic at hand. So I generally try and send questions. Our study session meets on Monday, so generally on Monday morning, my city manager will have questions from me in an email, and then the department heads will have answers ready for when the meeting comes. So it's not a gotcha moment. Yeah.
And I've always viewed staff as our job is to get you the information to make the best decision possible. And if you need additional information,
right,
we want to go out and we want it to, so you can be prepared, so that you can vote or learn more, whatever the case is. But absolutely, it should be a conversation the entire way. And those worst moments I've seen is where somebody waits till the governing body meeting and springs something, and then everybody's like, well, if you sent me this at 10 in the morning, I could have had a great answer for you. Because sometimes it is phone and friend. It's talking to city attorney, it's talking to bond counsel, it's talking to engineers, finding out that information. And sometimes it's even asking those folks to be at the meeting if we know that that's going to be somebody needs further information. So please help staff out. Please help your community out by asking good questions ahead of time. One of the best analogies that I've seen, Sarah, on how a city works as a whole is talking about called the flight analogy. And I think we'll go ahead and post it, and we have that available for you. But really talking about how the operation works. What's the role of the council? What's the role of staff? And how does it blend together? Day-to-day stuff, that's really, staff is there to implement it. If you're telling staff how to dig a hole, how to do X, Y, and Z, you're really in the nuts and bolts. And that's why we hire good staff, is to learn that information and go out and execute their jobs.
It's kind of flight planning, really, is what it is. It's the prep work that you're doing ahead of time, ready to go. It's before you've even taken off. So yeah, it's the stuff before you even get out into the air. Yes.
The next place is projects. Staff's going to do a lot of work to identify what projects need to happen. Going back to the water plant, sewer plant, they're working there. They know what's working well and what's not working well. So some of that project identification really comes from staff level, but there is commission discussion. Are these the right projects for our community? Can we afford these projects? But that's kind of the next step. And then we move into planning and oversight. That's really, how do all the projects put together?
How do they harmonize?
How do we make sure that we're balancing water and sewer needs with public safety needs, with the electric utility? How do we balance all these needs? And that's really, now we're at the 20,000 foot level on planning and oversight. Definitely more of a role for commission in those discussions. And the next one's priority action items. And that goes back to really, what's the most important thing to
Absolutely.
our community? You're hearing those voices. Is it, staff may think streets are really fine for another year, but you're getting a lot of calls about the potholes on Walnut Street, and that's a priority.
That's one thing you'll get a lot of calls about, is potholes. I can almost guarantee it. Yes.
This time is not pothole season, but come March, you will hear more about potholes than you've ever thought you would hear about potholes.
And those all kidding aside, it is important. It is critical that those are addressed.
Oh.
And so, yeah, sometimes those do become priorities. And if they're not taken care of, then they become even bigger issues.
Absolutely. To me, it's those basic items that lead to good government. It's trash pickup, trash delivery, potholes, those things that, people don't notice when it works, water, sewer, but when it doesn't work, it's a big...
When the slipper slide is broken, or when the swing is broken at the park, people notice it.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
And we talked about strategic plans, but now we're really into the council area. A little bit of staff there, but what are the strategic goals of the community? What does your city look like in 5 or 10 years from now?
Really, and that is kind of getting up to the higher elevation there. Know that at least from my point of view, your job is really to create policy that moves that city forward. Your job is not to be out there actually making the policy happen. Creating the policy is your job.
You're putting together that framework for staff to go out and execute on.
Yes.
When they know what those parameters, when they know what you want to achieve, when they want to know what resources are available to them too. These are all big keys of the
huge components
puzzle. Water and sewer, everything is dependent on, what water and sewer rates you're comfortable with, what tax levy you're comfortable with. That makes everything else work. And when we start talking about a 5-year plan, that puts it all together. But if the governing body's goal is to see a decrease in tax revenue, as we put together those our strategic goals, we have to realize that, and we have to do things to make that realized. But if deferred infrastructure needs is the number one goal of your community, there's obviously a cost to that.
Absolutely.
If that's what you're going to address.
Absolutely.
And that's really what commission needs to tell you, is how they want to move, where they want their tax and rate policy to be, and what what resources they're going to make available to go out and to establish.
You're right. You're really writing the policy for your staff. It's kind of the handbook you're giving to staff to say, all right, now you go. Ready? Go.
Yes.
That's kind of how it is.
And then at the end of the day is in my mind, the absolute responsibility of council, and that's the purpose and vision of the city. I remind our members of this all the time. There is no service a city has to perform, including police and fire. These are all services that we decided that we want to perform. It's a higher level of service than what's available from the county. Mm-hmm. But what is the purpose? What are we doing? Where are we going as a community? Like I said, I think in the last section, but what do we look like in 10 years? And that's, that when elected officials give us that information, we can be the absolutely most successful when we know exactly where we're going.
It's kind of that leave the place better than you found it. And I'm sure that I know that every elected official that I've met really believes that they really want to leave the community a better place than they found it. And that's driven by the purpose and the vision of your city.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, you're from a commissioner-manager city. So we have various different forms of government in the state of Kansas. But I think commissioner-manager is probably one of the more unique cities because the mayor, like I mentioned, you've been mayor several times, but that's because the mayor is elected
from within.
So when do you guys have those mayor elections?
We do that the very beginning of January.
So right after everybody takes office.
Actually, the same exact meeting.
Same meeting. Elect a new mayor. And you guys use it kind of a formula for?
We have a conversation with our city attorney or our city manager, and honestly, if we do generally top vote getter or one of the top 2 vote getters is in line to be mayor, but not everybody who is elected wants to be mayor, and that's okay. If you don't want to be mayor and you want to serve in a different capacity, it's okay. But know that taking on the role of mayor is additional. So it comes with additional duties.
And you are the figurehead of your city when you serve as mayor. You're the first image of the city that most folks have. But I guess know who your mayor is, know who runs the meeting, know what your quorum is. It's typically the majority of the governing body.
Right.
Sometimes because there were some old open meetings rules that some cities bumped that up. But make sure you're not one of those cities that increase their quorum requirement. With where open meetings is now, you don't have to have it. So it's typically just the majority. So Ottawa's case, it's 3 of the 5.
That is correct. And here's where the important part is. The important part is really to have those conversations with your city attorney, your highest member of your city staff, who will know those answers. There's no reason for you to go out and try and find them or make them up. Just ask, and someone will know what the quorum is, most definitely.
Quorum, and most cities have a vice mayor or deputy mayor or council president. Depends on your
structure.
Mm-hmm. It depends on your governing body, how that works, but have a good understanding of how those elections have worked in the past and how it's all came together. I think because that's sometimes one of the earliest decisions you're asked to make is who's our new council president,
yes,
who's our new vice mayor, who's our deputy mayor, and those are important decisions because I've seen multiple times where that person is asked to step up into that role of mayor if something does happen, if they resign, take a job elsewhere.
Well, or even if they're absent just for a meeting. I mean, your mayor may be absent for a meeting here or there, and they run the meeting. And so if they're absent, they have a kiddo that's sick, they're not on business, they've got stuff going on, somebody's got to run the meeting.
Absolutely.
And generally that's your mayor pro tem or your assistant mayor or your vice mayor, whomever that is. Know who that is because that probably will happen. And it's going to change the flow of your meeting.
Yes, absolutely.
Just be prepared for that. At the League, we have a list of really great tips and tools that we like to share with you on just really how to be a really successful public servant. One of the things I think that you need to know, and one of the things I often say is that, being elected is a complete honor. It is an honor that I'm asked to serve my community. It was an honor to be the League president. Know that you're not going to know how to handle every situation, and that's okay, but just handle it to the best of your ability. It's one of my rules is just really to do your best, and know that being elected is an honor, and you're representing your city. Just do your best, and that's what you can do.
And if you get stuck somewhere, reach out to city staff,
Yes.
reach out to your city attorney,
Yes.
and then reach out to us.
Yes.
That one of the great benefits to your membership with the League is we have attorneys that work in our building, and when you get stuck, something weird happens, they're here and they'll take your call and they will help you get through it. So there's 625 cities in the state of Kansas. Even though something may be weird for your city,
It's probably happened somewhere else.
We see a lot here at the League.
Mm-hmm.
There's 625. There's a chance that something happens all across the state. So if you do get stuck, give us a call.
Yes.
And we are more than...
They are.
We will help you. We will get you with somebody else. And it may be, such and such city had a similar problem. Why don't you reach out to their city clerk and see if she can help you work through it. So give us a call if you've had natural disaster, any of that stuff. reach out. We are your resource here.
You know, I think one of the most important things, and it goes back to really about being elected, is being just really an honor to serve your community. But just remember to always be open to the thoughts and the communication that you may receive from the public. My children and my husband don't even like to go out to the grocery store, to Walmart with me, because it never fails. We always get stopped and asked about questions. But I always give them an opportunity to tell me what it is they need to tell us. Being open, honest, willing to listen. And you know what? Oftentimes I don't know the answer. And so my standard response is, I don't know, but I can get back with you. And then you know what? I get back to them. So it's important to be there.
And so often people just want to be heard.
Yes.
And I think one of the mistakes governing body officials make sometimes is giving them their opinion at that time. It doesn't take anything. Just listen, seek to understand, and then get back with them and give them more information. One of the places when you try to give them that information there at the time, sometimes that doesn't work out as well as getting back with them later. So even if you know the answer, sometimes it's better just to feel that you've heard them, listen, do a little bit of a dive in, and then get back with them.
We've had conversations in the past about public comment, and oftentimes you may get individuals who come to your city commission meetings and want to address the city in public comment. They should do that. I always invite individuals to do that. However, know that oftentimes they're frustrated, they're angry. It's kind of the hungry, angry, lonely, tired halt method. But it's one of those things. And so listen to them. You're probably not going to be able to fix it from where you're at. But what you can do is, this is where knowing your city staff is important, be able to say, Mr. and Mrs. Jones or Mr. and Mrs. Smith, let me connect you with this person who can help you. Let me connect you with this person who can help you. And give them an opportunity to be heard, but an opportunity to then move their concern to someone who can help them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Know that head-on conflicts are going to happen. It's just going to happen. But your responsibility is to be respectful. Just be prepared. And I got to tell you, there's plenty of videos out there probably of me not doing my absolute best, but I always try and be respectful of the thoughts of others because it is their opinion. Know that we encourage you to ask your staff lots of questions, which we've already said several times, but again, governing body can help you out, and so can the league. We do, you know how to get the copy of the governing body handbook, and you know to get the magazine, but we also have a really cool handout that we think is really important, and it is based on Ernie Mosher. And
so Ernie Mosher was the executive director of the league for 30 years. Great reputation across Kansas, but he has his 52 tips for successful practice. I'm just going to pick out a couple of these. I think this is something Sarah and I have hit on. Ernie retired in the early 90s, so these are things that were relevant, almost 30 years ago that are still very relevant today. But don't spring surprises on your fellow governing body members, your city staff, especially at formal meetings. If a matter is worth bringing up for discussion, it's worth being on the agenda. Surprises may get you some publicity at the embarrassment of others, but they tend to erode the team approach to governance. Yeah. Don't always take no for an answer. The right question may be, how can we do this, instead of may we do this?
Absolutely.
I think another point we've talked on, learn to listen, really listen to your fellow governing body members in the public. Hear what they are trying to say, not just the words that are spoken. And I think another place that we focus on the future, try to leave your city better than what you inherited. I think some of the governing body members who struggle, well, why did they do this then? Why did they do this now? Instead of saying, we are here, we're in the seats now, let's make the absolutely best decision for whoever sits in this seat next time.
I think the point that Trey just made about focus on the future is exactly why we're doing this video today. This video today is about the future of your community. We do have a cool new quick guide for you to look at. It's about now you're elected and oh no, now what? I remember when I was first elected that I kind of felt that way too. I was like, oh, I'm elected. Okay, now what do I need to do? And it is a job. But know that the league is here and this cool guide is ready for you. And we certainly want you to pick it up and look through it and utilize all the good information in it. This video is not going to be the end. You are going to hear from the league several times, and there are several times that you have opportunity to interact with the league. One of those times will be April 29th when we have Governing Body Institute that will be in Manhattan. It's on the 29th and 30th of April. It'll be spring before you know it, and so get that on your calendar, and we hope that you join us at the Governing Body Institute in Manhattan on the 29th and 30th of April.
Great thing for you to do right now is sign up for League News. You can do that on our website. Go to our website, lkm.org, look over it, get registered as a member so you can access those member benefits. But definitely sign up for League News. It comes out almost every week on Friday, so you know what's going on across the state.
You know, and I would be remiss if I didn't do a slight little plug about the league and becoming involved in the league. The league has a governing body that helps move the policy that really is a statewide policy to move our whole state forward. And if you are interested in becoming more involved in the league and the governing body, I certainly would encourage you, reach out to me, reach out to somebody here at the league, reach out to anybody who's on the governing body and talk to them about it, because we would love to talk to you about how you can become more involved in just really how municipalities work in the entire state of Kansas.
I think you're so right, and having worked for the league for the past 4 years, it is amazing to see the cities that use us as a resource, how successful they are. And I would definitely encourage folks to get involved, go to those meetings, go to the Governing Body Institute in April. More you learn at this point in your council career, the more successful you're going to be. So get involved, soak it up, and attend. Well, Sarah, thanks for joining us today. Hopefully somebody found some useful information through this, but I guess I'm going to just leave them. If you have questions, call us here at the league.
Absolutely.
And we're more than willing to help them. But thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. And please, if you have questions at all, I may not know the answers, but I'm happy to hear from you. And I certainly would like to hear about your journey as an elected official in your community. Congratulations on being elected. I look forward to seeing you at several league activities.